So the Detroit Lions won against the Chicago Bears yesterday, and it was a great time. I mean, Penei Sewell is taking handoffs. He was about to pass. I'm like, what are we doing? Then it took 5 people to push him out of bounds. I loved it and hated it at the same time. We'll be talking about that later on as well. But there's a player who's been in the news for all the wrong reasons. And I have had the discussion with you guys that if you cry wolf, you can only do it for so long. Now, I think that I'm going to surprise you here with my reaction, and we're talking about Jameson Williams flipping the ball at the defender on the sideline who is not in the game and wind up setting our team back, okay? Now, I'm not upset with this. I'm not. I mean, does he need to grow up and get better? Yeah, but I'm not popping the gasket. You know why? This is a combat sport. These guys battle for a living, right? The stuff that they do on the field can only be done on the field. You take that anywhere else, that's assault, right? So it's a combat. So for any Lion, any NFL player to keep their cool after a play is outstanding to me. And then again, you have what's been happening during the game. Was it smack talk? I heard that that the dude tripped J-Mo or tried to trip him. I could not see that clip, but nonetheless, Jameson Williams flicks the ball back in the defender's face. The ref sees it, tacks on 15 extra yards. It set us back, right? But if you go back to the game against the Indianapolis Colts, Jahmyr Gibbs got a taunting penalty. It was after he scored a touchdown, but you see the difference? You see what perception, how it matters? Perception matters. Jahmyr Gibbs, Sonic and Knuckles, everything is great. No problems on or off the field. Jameson Williams does it, however, and yes, he was getting absolutely destroyed by Antoine Randall L. I don't know if he came back in the game. I really don't know. Somebody said he was benched. I love that the Lions did that. I love that they did that. You can't let that stuff happen. Now, you could argue that Jahmyr Gibbs had already scored a touchdown, and Dan Campbell said they can do whatever they want when it comes to the celebration, but this wasn't a celebration, but as long as it doesn't cost the team yardage, all right? And Jahmyr Gibbs did, but it was after a play. But it was essentially the same call. It was taunting versus taunting. It was Jameson versus Jahmyr. It was one person you always hear in the news for not the right reasons, and one person you never hear nothing about. It is just like we saw Brian Branch last week against the Colts. Now they're queuing in. It's just like Rasheed Wallace with the Pistons back in the mid-2000s. They're zooming in on Jameson Williams. They're zooming in on Brian Branch. I'm not mad at it. We won the game. I wasn't mad at it at the time. I understood it. But you got to be able to think. In addition to that, Jameson Williams is 22 years old. He's 22 years old. He got to get it together, right? He's 5 years older than my teenage son. His brain ain't even fully developed yet. So, but am I giving him a pass? I'm not. But I understood it. It happened in the moment. It was a bad play, bad decision. But what he did is he apologized to his team unsolicited, which means that nobody asked him to do that. Nobody told him to do that. He did it. Here's what Dan Campbell had to say about that call. Says, yeah, and look, I'll be honest with you. That's already cleaned up. It's already cleaned up. So we're good. As a matter of fact, and this is big of Coach, because he knows what the narrative is becoming for Jameson Williams. And Coach, bro, this guy, Dan Campbell, is really, he's really taking on that father-coach role with Jameson Williams. Says, in fact, J-Mo got right in front of the team a minute ago, unsolicited, and wanted to apologize to his teammates. That's big. That's growth. So all good. This is the second time in 3 weeks, and I keep using the wrong transition. This is the second time in 3 weeks that Dan Campbell has vouched for Jameson Williams. And this isn't about whether Jameson Williams is nothing about whether he's a good or bad person. It is about the fact that you can only do stuff so many times. And yes, something is small. And if you were watching the Pistons back in the mid-2000s, the referees would start to key on Rasheed Wallace. And they would, so Rasheed is like Brian Branch. They're going to be watching everything Brian Branch does. And Jameson Williams is kind of falling into that category. You got to be smart because it's the same thing. Jahmyr Gibbs got a taunting call during the Colts game, 15 yards. Did we score already? Yeah, right? So it's kind of a kickoff is not the same. It's not the same, but the call is the same, right? The fine, the penalty is the same, but it depending on what happens when it's done, it matters. So Jameson Williams hurt us scoring. Jahmyr Gibbs just affected a kickoff. But you got to be smarter. You got to be smarter. And Antoine Randall L. was absolutely destroying him yesterday. And I think this is good for Jameson. Let's take a look. I want to show y'all this. This is Jameson Williams and Antoine Randall L. And I saw this, and I love this. I love this. Antoine Randall L., Super Bowl champion. He not trying to hear this. He not trying to hear it. That's how your daddy talk to you. Your daddy, let me stop. Your daddy talks to you like that. There's no excuse. I would love to know what he was saying during that whole transaction. But Jameson Williams, I'm not mad. It happens. It happens. This stuff is in the moment. You know, any of us, look, somebody bump us on the street, we ready to go, right? So I'm not mad at this. I don't know what was happening with Jameson Williams, but he's got to get, and you know what? I think he will. I think he will. Because Jameson Williams has already grown in maturity since he was drafted. We've seen that. Year one, he was complaining that remember it was stuff coming out that he wanted to play. He thought he was well enough to play, but the coaches and they hadn't taken him off the NFI list yet, right? So I think Jameson is growing. We got to give him more time, but he's running out of time from the outside narrative perspective. But hopefully he gets it together real soon.